The first scream came from Hollow Creek just past midnight. Locals said the house by the creek had been empty for 10 years. Yet on that October night, its windows glowed faint orange, like someone had lit a fire inside. The sheriff's deputy, a young man named Clay Dawson, stopped his cruiser on the gravel road and rolled down his window. The air smelled like damp wood and rust. Then came the sound. A sharp, heavy thud followed by a dragging noise. He grabbed his flashlight, walked to the porch, and froze. The door was open, creaking softly as if breathing. Inside, the air was thick with soot and mildew. His radio hissed static. "Base, I got movement in the old Weller house," he whispered. "Static. Nothing else." Something moved in the kitchen. Slow, scraping. Clay took a step inside. The floorboards groaned like something underneath was shifting. He swung his flashlight toward the sound. The beam caught a woman's face, pale, wet, and expressionless, staring back from the dark corner. Then the light flickered, and she was gone. Clay stumbled back toward the door, but it slammed shut before he reached it. Hollow Creek wasn't even a town anymore. Just a fading collection of wooden houses and a gas station that hadn't worked since 2002. Locals said the place was cursed ever since the Weller family burned in their own home 20 years ago. Clay had heard the story his whole life, how Harold Weller lost his mind, locked his wife and daughter inside, and set the place ablaze. But there were no bodies ever found, only ash and melted glass. He'd taken the sheriff's job 2 months ago, thinking it would be quiet work, drunks, trespassers, maybe a missing dog. But since last week, folks had been calling in whispers about strange lights near the creek. The first night, he ignored it. The second night, someone reported hearing laughter. By the third, when he found a deer carcass with its bones arranged in a perfect circle by the creek's edge, he knew something wasn't right. Now he stood inside that house, or what was left of it, with his flashlight flickering. He called out, "Hello? Anybody in here?" His voice echoed too long, like the house was answering back. The walls were damp, wallpaper peeled like dried skin. The smell was thick, burnt wood and something sweet, like rotting fruit. On the mantel he saw 3 melted candles and a framed photo half-burned. A smiling girl, maybe 12, with braids. Behind him a soft shuffle. "Who's there?" Silence. He pointed his flashlight toward the staircase. The banister was blackened, but he saw faint footprints, small, bare, leading upward. "Dispatch," he said into his radio. "I'm inside the Weller place. Possible trespasser, maybe a kid. Static again." He climbed. Each step whined. Upstairs, the hallway was lined with children's drawings still tacked to the walls, stick figures holding hands, a house by a creek, a sun drawn in crayon. Only the last one was different. It showed the same house, but the windows were burning, and 3 black shapes stood inside. Something dripped onto his shoulder. He looked up. Water, or blood. When he raised the light, he saw a dark stain spreading across the ceiling. And then, faintly, the imprint of a hand pressed from above. A whisper followed. "Help." As Clay froze. The whisper had come from inside the ceiling, or the attic beyond it. He found the attic ladder and climbed. Each rung creaked under his boots. The air grew thick, smoky. Up there, the temperature dropped instantly. His breath came out white. The attic was small, just beams, dust, and a single rocking chair. It was moving on its own, slow and steady. In front of it, 3 blackened marks on the floorboards, like burned shadows of people kneeling. He crouched. The floor felt warm. "Anyone up here?" The rocking stopped. Then a faint voice, a child's whisper. "You shouldn't have come." He spun, light shaking. No one there. He caught a glimpse of something scrawled on the wall in charcoal. "We never left." His flashlight died. Total darkness. He heard breathing. Close, uneven, childlike. Then another, deeper, rasping. "Daddy said we could stay forever." The girl's voice giggled. Clay stumbled toward the ladder. A hand brushed his ankle. He kicked free, fell halfway down, crashed to the floor below. He limped into the kitchen, panting. Every window was fogged from inside, writing pressed into the condensation. "Stay." He raised his gun. "I'm not afraid of you." A deep, cracking voice replied from the dark hallway. Male, strained, like someone speaking through burned lungs. "Then burn with us." A wind tore through the house, blowing out his flashlight completely. For a moment, the house lit up on its own, not with light, but flame. Walls glowed red hot. Shadows danced. A man, a woman, a child, and the man's shadow turned toward him. Clay fired 3 rounds into the dark. Each shot echoed through the empty valley, then silence. When the sheriff's office came at dawn, they found his cruiser running, headlights pointed at the creek. The door to the Weller house was closed, smoke rising from inside. Inside, they found the same 3 burn marks, and one more beside them, a 4th, fresh. The official report said, "Officer missing," but folks in Hollow Creek knew better. 2 nights later, the lights came back in the house. People saw shapes moving behind the windows again. Sheriff Mabel, Clay's senior officer, decided to go herself. The town begged her not to. She parked by the creek, flashlight in hand. The air smelled of ash. She crossed the porch, and the door opened before she touched it. Inside, she found the gun, Clay's revolver, sitting neatly on the table. "Still warm, Mabel," a voice whispered behind her. She froze. "Clay?" He stepped out from the dark hallway. His face was pale, blistered, and eyes hollow as burnt wood. "Don't come closer," she said. He smiled, a faint, twitching smile. "They said we can stay." He looked past her toward the stairs. "They're waiting. Clay, we need to leave." He shook his head. "You can't leave once you hear them." "Who?" The walls began to creak, expanding like lungs. Every plank breathed slow and heavy. The floor rippled under her boots. Then she heard them. Faint children's laughter from inside the walls. "Daddy's home," the voice said from the upstairs. The sound of footsteps, dozens, even, though the house was empty. Flames began to lick the corners of the room, but no smoke. The fire burned soundless, like light bleeding through wood. Mabel ran for the door, but the knob melted in her hand. Behind her, Clay whispered, "You should have listened." She turned back once, and the figures were there. A man, a woman, and a girl, all blackened silhouettes standing in the living room, their eyes glowing white like coals. They raised their hands. The fire surged, and the world went white. When the fire crews arrived at dawn, there was no trace of Clay or Mabel, just the house. Perfectly intact, not a single mark of smoke. Inside, though, every wall was covered in small handprints, hundreds of them. The county sealed it off, but people still drive by sometimes. They say if you stop near Hollow Creek after midnight, you can see the windows glowing orange and hear children laughing by the water. Last year, a new deputy moved into town. He laughed when locals warned him. 2 weeks later, his car was found by the creek, engine running, headlights on, and from inside the Weller house, a man's voice was heard saying softly, "Another one to stay." Rain slammed against Highway 47 the night Claire Winton's car broke down. Her phone had no signal, and the only light came from a flickering neon sign up ahead. Motel Pines, vacancy. The parking lot was empty except for one rusted pickup. The air smelled of wet tar and cigarettes. Inside the office, a bell rang when she entered. The clerk, an old man with hollow eyes and a crooked grin, looked up. "You're lucky," he said. "One room left," she smiled weakly. "Guess it's my night." He slid her a key with a faded number. Room 9. The hallway light flickered as she walked. Wallpaper bubbled from moisture. Somewhere behind the walls, water dripped endlessly. Her room was cold, the bed neatly made. She turned on the TV, static. In the corner, the telephone rang once, then stopped. She picked it up. No dial tone. Just faint breathing, then a whisper. "Don't open the door." Before she could move, 3 slow knocks came from the other side. Claire had been driving to visit her sister in a nearby town, a 6-hour trip through back roads and forgotten farmland. She wasn't superstitious, just tired, but there was something about that motel. The sign buzzed like a trapped fly, the letters dimming one by one. Inside, every surface looked decades old. Floral carpet, faded wallpaper, heavy curtains that smelled of smoke. She tried to shake the feeling. Maybe it was just the storm. After the knock, she waited. Nothing moved. She opened the door. The hallway was empty. Just a long stretch of flickering bulbs and peeling wallpaper. But there was a trail of wet footprints leading away from her room. Small, bare, childlike. She followed them halfway, then stopped. They ended in front of room 7, where the door was slightly ajar. Inside, darkness. She leaned closer. "Hello?" A woman's voice answered, broken, distant, trembling. "Help me!" Then the door slammed. Claire ran back to her room, heart pounding. She locked the door, pushed a chair under the handle, and sat on the bed, shaking. The phone rang again. She hesitated, then lifted it. "Who is this?" Silence. Then, "He doesn't like when they leave." She hung up, trembling. In the next room, faintly, a man's voice spoke, calm and humming. A door opened, then shut. Footsteps passed her window. Claire peeked through the curtain. The parking lot was empty, Sue, but she could see new tire marks, fresh and wet. Someone else had just arrived. Hours passed. Rain kept falling. The motel seemed alive. The walls groaned, pipes moaned, wind whistled through cracks. Claire couldn't sleep. She turned off the lamp, sat in silence. Then came a faint tap. Not on the door this time, but from inside the closet. She froze. The tap repeated, rhythmic, almost like fingernails. She crept closer, hand shaking. "Who's there?" A whisper. "Don't look." The knob turned from inside. She backed away, grabbed her car keys, and ran for the door. When she yanked it open, the hallway was pitch black. The lights were all out, but she could hear breathing, not hers. Deep, steady, right beside her ear. She ran toward the lobby. The clerk wasn't there. The counter was empty, the guest book open. She glanced down. The most recent signatures were decades old. 1987, 1993, 1998. Then her eyes caught the last entry. Claire Winton, room 9. Written in fresh ink, her hand began to shake. She hadn't signed anything. Behind her, the lobby lights flickered, and the clerk was there again. "You're not supposed to be out of your room. What the hell is this place?" He smiled. "We take care of our guests." His skin looked pale, translucent. His shirt was burned at the edges. Claire ran. She reached the parking lot, rain soaking through her coat. The cars were gone, every one of them. Even hers, just puddles reflecting the neon sign. Vacancy. She turned back. The motel looked older now, the walls crumbling, windows broken, sign half fallen, and yet she could still hear voices inside, muffled, arguing, crying. Lightning flashed. For a split second, the parking lot was full again. Cars from different decades, all lined up perfectly, headlights faintly glowing. Then darkness. She forced herself back into the office. She needed to find a phone, something real. Behind the counter, a door led to a small back room. She pushed through. Inside, dozens of framed photos hung on the walls. Guests smiling, standing in front of room 9. Every photo was dated, every guest different, but one detail was the same. The clerk was in each picture, standing beside them, same grin, same burnt shirt, and behind every pair of guests, in the window, a faint figure, a man, dark and featureless. Claire felt her chest tighten. The phone on the desk began to ring. She picked it up slowly. A calm, male voice answered, "You should have stayed asleep." She dropped the phone. The door slammed shut. The lights went out. She turned, hearing footsteps. The clerk's voice, soft and polite. "Housekeeping." Then the sound of keys jangling. She ducked under the desk as the knob turned. The room flooded with light, warm, orange, like fire. The clerk stepped inside, dragging something heavy, a body wrapped in a motel sheet. He placed it gently on the floor, straightened his tie, and whispered, "Room service complete." Claire covered her mouth. Her heart thundered. The clerk tilted his head, listening. Then, in a voice suddenly colder, "You can't hide forever." She crawled toward the back window, broke the glass with a chair, and climbed out into the storm. Behind her, the neon sign sparked violently, letters dying one by one until only 3 remained. "Pin." She sprinted down the road. No cars, no lights, only rain. After a mile, headlights appeared behind her, a passing truck. She waved, desperate. The driver stopped. "You okay, miss?" "Please drive." "Just drive." He nodded, started the engine. They drove for 10 minutes before Claire finally looked back. There was no motel behind them. No lights, just darkness and the endless rain. The driver glanced at her. "You're lucky," he said softly. "One room left." She stared. His eyes reflected orange. The next morning, police searched Highway 47. No motel. No trace of Claire's car. But truckers kept reporting strange sightings. A glowing motel sign appearing during storms, disappearing by dawn. Some said they saw people standing at the windows, waving for help. A year later, a couple driving cross-country vanished during a thunderstorm. Their last phone signal pinged near Hollow Pines Road, where Motel Pines once stood before it burned down in 1989. Locals still say, when it rains hard enough, you can see Room 9's light flickering through the mist and hear a phone ringing somewhere inside. If you ever stop for the night and the clerk says, "You're lucky, one room left," don't take it, because no one ever checks out. When the wind blows through Millhaven, it carries voices. Locals say they come from the old grain silo on the edge of town, the one sealed shut after the accident. On cold nights, people still hear a child crying from inside. Ethan Cole didn't believe in ghosts. He was a field mechanic for the co-op, fixing silos and augers across rural towns. One afternoon, his boss called, "Old Millhaven's silo's making noise again. Locals think it's haunted. Go prove it's just wind." By sunset, he was there, a rusted tower rising above the cornfields, shadowed against a blood-red sky. The wind howled through the vents, low and hollow, like someone whispering from deep inside the metal. Ethan climbed the ladder, flashlight trembling. The door was welded, but something had scratched from the inside, deep marks like fingernails. He leaned close, listening. A small voice echoed back, "Please, don't leave me again." Millhaven was the kind of place maps forgot. A strip of road, a diner, 2 churches, and acres of corn that never seemed to end. The silo stood alone beyond the fields, older than anyone alive. People avoided it. Kids dared each other to run up and touch the metal, but none stayed long. Ethan parked his truck beside it. The ground was soft with mud, footprints leading nowhere. He tapped the metal with a wrench, hollow. He crouched to inspect the hatch, noting the rusted welds. It had been sealed for years. But someone, recently, had cut part of it open. Inside was darkness so thick it seemed to swallow the light. He climbed halfway up the ladder, shining the beam through the vent. Dust swirled like fog. Then something moved, a shadow shifting between the beams of light. "Hello?" He called. No answer. He waited, thinking he'd imagined it. But then came a faint giggle, small and nervous. A child's voice. "Who's in there?" The giggle stopped. He climbed higher, heart pounding. The top hatch was half open, swinging in the wind. He grabbed the edge, lifted it, and nearly dropped the flashlight. Inside, resting atop the grain, was a small wooden toy truck, perfectly clean, like it had been placed there minutes ago. He pocketed it, shaking his head. "Somebody's screwing around," he muttered. But as he climbed down, a whisper followed him from the dark inside. "Don't take my toy." That night, Ethan stayed at a roadside inn 2 miles out of town. The toy truck sat on the table by the bed. He kept staring at it. Something about it felt wrong. The paint too fresh, the wood too smooth. At midnight, a soft sound woke him. The toy was moving. It rolled slowly across the table, stopped, then turned its wooden wheels toward him. He stumbled back. What the hell? The engine of his truck outside roared to life on its own. He ran to the window, headlights flashing in the empty lot, no one inside. Then it shut off. Silence. He didn't sleep. The next morning, he drove back to the silo. The fields were misty, corn stalks rattling in the wind. He climbed the ladder again, flashlight ready. The hatch he'd seen welded shut. Now open wide, inside, footprints, small, bare, leading into the grain. He called out, "Hello? You shouldn't be in there." "It's dangerous," a boy's voice answered from below the grain. "You came back." Ethan froze. "Who's down there?" No reply. Then the grain shifted, like something moving under the surface. He climbed down halfway, light trembling. "I can help you." "Just," the voice came again, louder. "It's too late." The metal walls groaned. The ladder shook. Suddenly, the grain began to rise, pouring upward as if pulled by invisible hands. He scrambled out just before the surface erupted, a burst of dust and chaff filling the air. Something thudded against the inside of the hatch again and again, then silence. Dropped to his knees, coughing. When the dust settled, he saw handprints pressed into the glass of his flashlight from the inside. That night, Ethan went to the diner in town. He told the waitress, a woman in her 50s, what he'd seen. She froze halfway through pouring coffee. "You shouldn't talk about that silo," she whispered. "Why?" She glanced toward the window. "Because he hears you when you do." "Who?" She leaned closer. "The boy. The one they buried alive." Ethan frowned. "That's not funny." Her hands trembled. "Wasn't meant to be. Back in '83, the foreman's son went missing. They searched for days, found his cap near the silo, but they never opened it. Said it was sealed for safety. When they finally cut it open, it was too late." She looked down. "They sealed it again. Said to keep him resting." Ethan felt cold. "You're telling me there's a body in there?" She nodded slowly. "There was." He stood. "Then who talked to me?" The lights flickered. Somewhere outside, the wind screamed through the fields like laughter. That night, Ethan drove back one last time. The door was wide open now, swinging gently. Inside, something glimmered in the grain, a small red cap. He stepped closer. The air grew heavy, thick, and warm. A smell of rot mixed with something sweet, almost metallic. He reached down, touched the cap, and a hand burst through the grain, gripping his wrist. Small, cold, but impossibly strong. "Play with me," the boy's voice said, now echoing from all around the metal walls. Ethan screamed, trying to pull away, but the grain began to shift again, pulling him down. As he sank, the last thing he saw was the toy truck, sitting on the edge of the hatch, rocking slightly in the wind. 3 days later, they found Ethan's truck parked beside the silo. Engine still warm. The hatch was sealed shut again. When the county crew cut it open, they found no body, just the toy truck sitting in the center of the grain pile, clean as new. They closed the case as missing person, but the locals knew. Now, when wind blows through Millhaven, the voices sound clearer. A man's voice calling out, "Let me out." And sometimes, a child's laughter answers. Last winter, a new farmhand working nearby claimed he saw something at sunrise. A figure of a man standing on top of the silo, holding a small red cap. When the crew climbed up to check, there were no footprints, only the cap, and beside it, a small wooden truck. They say the boy in the silo has a new friend now, and the wind never stops whispering.